The scrapyard was quiet, except for the hum of machinery and the occasional clank of metal. Leora Kane wiped the grease from her hands and squinted at the pile of wreckage before her. She had been a mechanic all her life, fixing ships, droids, and engines, but today something felt different. Among the twisted metal of a crashed alien freighter, she noticed a faint glow. Curiosity drew her closer. She brushed aside charred panels and broken wires, her heart beating faster. There, tucked between a scorched hull and a broken crate, was an object unlike anything she had seen. It was egg-shaped, smooth, and glowing faintly with colors that seemed to shift as she moved. The light was warm, almost alive. She hesitated, unsure if she should touch it, but something inside her told her this was no ordinary object. Leora gently picked up the egg. It was heavier than it looked, and she could feel a faint vibration coming from within like a heartbeat. Her eyes widened. The egg pulsed softly under her touch, responding to her presence. She glanced around the scrapyard, ensuring no one else was near. Whoever had owned this egg, or whatever creature had laid it, was long gone, leaving the egg behind. She had a choice: leave it among the wreckage or take it home and see what it might become. Her instincts as a mechanic, her need to understand and repair, pushed her toward curiosity. Carefully, she carried the egg back to her small workshop at the edge of the station. The workshop was filled with tools, half-finished engines, and scraps of alien technology she had scavenged over the years. She set the egg on a soft mat and examined it more closely. It shimmered in the dim light, colors dancing across its surface. She could feel its warmth, and every so often, it gave a tiny shiver as if alive. Leora ran her fingers along the smooth shell, trying to understand what it was made of. It felt almost organic, yet there were patterns in the surface that hinted at intelligence. She had worked with alien tech before, but this was different. It was living, but it was also extraordinary. She leaned closer, her breath fogging slightly in the cool workshop air. "What are you?" she whispered. The egg pulsed stronger, almost as if it had heard her. Leora jumped back slightly, startled, but then she smiled. The moment felt like a connection, as if the egg had chosen her. She wrapped it carefully in a soft blanket and placed it in a small incubator she had built for delicate alien specimens. The glow continued, now steady and warm, filling the workshop with a gentle light. Days passed. Leora watched the egg constantly, checking its temperature, vibration, and light patterns. It seemed to respond to her presence, pulsing brighter when she approached and dimming slightly when she left. She began to speak to it softly, telling it about her day, about the ships she had repaired, and even about the lonely nights on the space station. She didn't know if it understood, but it felt right. Somehow, she knew it was listening. The station was quiet, but Leora could sense eyes on her sometimes, curious glances from other mechanics and traders who had noticed her carrying the egg. She didn't tell them what it was. They wouldn't understand. The egg was hers to protect, to nurture, and to discover. At night, she would sit beside it, running her hands over the blanket and feeling the subtle vibrations that continued without fail. One night, as the twin moons of the planet reflected through the workshop window, the egg began to shake. Leora's heart raced. The glow intensified, bright and vivid, and tiny cracks appeared along the surface. She held her breath, unsure if it was safe to touch. Then, with a soft pop and a rush of warmth, the egg began to split open. Leora carefully parted the shell, her hands trembling with excitement and awe. Inside was a small creature, unlike anything she had ever seen. It had delicate scales that shimmered in rainbow colors, tiny wings folded against its back, and eyes bright with curiosity and intelligence. It blinked up at her, and for the first time, Leora felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. This was no longer an object to study, it was alive, vulnerable, and completely dependent on her. The hatchling moved instinctively toward her, chirping softly. Leora reached out her hand, letting it climb onto her palm. The tiny creature's warmth spread through her fingers, and a bond formed instantly. She had found it, protected it, and now she would raise it. She named it Vera, a name that felt right as soon as it left her lips. The hatchling chirped again as if approving. For the first time in years, Leora felt something stir inside her beyond curiosity or duty. She felt wonder, responsibility, and a strange kind of joy. The little dragon had changed everything. Her quiet life as a mechanic, spent among tools and metal, would never be the same. She realized that this creature, so small and fragile, held the potential to change her life forever. She looked down at Vera, eyes wide and shimmering, and whispered softly, "We're going to do this together. I'll keep you safe." The dragon chirped again, nuzzling her hand, and Leora knew she meant it. For the first time she felt a connection deeper than anything she had known, a partnership that could grow, challenge her, and maybe even change the galaxy. The night passed quietly, but the workshop was alive with the soft glow of the dragon egg shell fragments and the new life within them. Leora sat back, exhausted but elated, cradling Vera carefully. She understood that this was only the beginning. The hatchling had chosen her, and she had chosen to protect it. Together, they would face whatever came next, and she could feel in her heart that nothing would ever be the same again. Outside, the scrapyard remained silent, the stars shining down over the quiet station. But inside, the light from Vera's scales reflected on the walls, filling the small workshop with warmth and promise. A life had begun, and with it, a new story, a story of courage, care, and a bond that would change both human and dragon forever. The hatchling stirred in Leora's hands, its tiny wings twitching as it blinked up at her with bright, curious eyes. Vera was small, no bigger than a kitten, but already full of energy and life. Leora marveled at the delicate shimmer of its scales, which reflected light like liquid metal. She had never seen anything like it, and the feeling of holding something so new and fragile filled her with awe. Vera chirped softly, a sound like a mixture of a bird and a small mechanical hum. It wriggled in her hands, tiny claws tapping gently on her palms. Leora laughed softly, her voice full of wonder. "You're awake," she whispered, stroking its head gently. "And you're beautiful." The hatchling tilted its head, blinking as if it understood, then nuzzled her fingers, testing the warmth of her skin. Over the next few hours, Leora observed Vera carefully. The hatchling had unusual features: wings that seemed delicate but strong, tiny spikes along its back, and a tail that flicked in perfect balance. It moved with surprising coordination for something so new, exploring the small space of the incubator with curiosity. Every sound or motion made it react quickly, blinking, twitching, or chirping softly. Leora realized that Vera was not only alive, she was aware, intelligent, and perceptive. Feeding was the first challenge. Leora had never cared for a dragon before, and she wasn't sure what to give it. She tried tiny bits of synthesized protein, soft fruits, and nutrient paste. Vera sniffed, tasted cautiously, and then chirped happily when it found something it liked. Leora smiled, relieved. She had a feeling that this little creature would adapt quickly, just like it had survived in the egg. As the night passed, Vera began to bond with Leora. Whenever she moved, the hatchling followed with wide eyes, chirping or fluttering its tiny wings. It seemed fascinated by her, watching her hands as she worked or stroked its scales. Leora felt an unexpected warmth in her chest. The bond between them was immediate, a connection that went beyond words. She realized that she was now responsible for this life, and that responsibility brought a strange mix of fear and excitement. By the second day, Vera was beginning to explore more confidently. It hopped onto Leora's shoulder, wrapping its small tail carefully around her neck. Leora laughed at the tickling sensation, feeling the hatchling's claws brush against her hair. The dragon was light but strong, and it moved with surprising grace. She could see flashes of intelligence in its bright eyes, as if it was studying her, learning her movements and habits. Leora began teaching Vera simple things. She showed it soft fabrics to sleep on, safe corners to explore, and objects it could play with. Vera responded quickly, batting at small tools with its claws, examining them with fascination, and chirping whenever it succeeded. Leora realized that this was more than instinct. The hatchling was learning, problem-solving, and interacting in ways no ordinary animal could. The bond grew deeper each day. When Leora repaired small ships or worked on engines, Vera watched closely, mimicking her hand movements in a small, clumsy way. It seemed fascinated by machines, trying to understand how they worked. Leora laughed, amazed at the intelligence of the creature she had discovered in a simple scrapyard. She began to wonder just how extraordinary Vera truly was. Vera's abilities became more apparent as the week passed. Its tail balanced it perfectly, its wings twitched as if testing strength, and it could respond to Leora's gestures and voice commands in ways that were surprising. The hatchling seemed to sense her emotions, chirping excitedly when she was happy or nuzzling her when she was tired. Leora realized that Vera wasn't just dependent on her for care, it was aware enough to care for her in return. One afternoon, a soft hum vibrated through the workshop as Vera accidentally activated a small console with its claws. Lights flickered and the hatchling chirped in surprise. Leora rushed over, laughing, realizing that Vera was already experimenting, exploring, and learning how to interact with technology. She realized that this little dragon could one day do incredible things, not just survive but thrive, learn, and perhaps even change the world. As the days turned into weeks, Vera grew stronger, more coordinated, and more curious. It began testing its wings, fluttering short distances, and exploring new parts of the workshop. Leora encouraged it carefully, teaching it to land safely and navigate obstacles. The hatchling was fearless yet careful, learning quickly from her guidance. Their trust in each other deepened. Leora understood that this wasn't just a creature she had found, it was a partner, a friend, and a teacher in ways she had never expected. One quiet evening, Leora watched Vera curl up on a soft pile of blankets, its small body glowing faintly in the dim light. She stroked its head, feeling the warmth of its scales and the steady rhythm of its breathing. "You've changed everything," she whispered. "My life, our lives, they're different now." The hatchling blinked slowly, nuzzling her hand as if agreeing. Vera had hatched, but the real journey was only beginning. Leora realized that this small dragon was extraordinary, not just for its intelligence or strength, but for the connection they shared. They would face challenges, adventures, and dangers together, and she knew that her life would never be the same again. The hatchling had arrived in her life and changed it forever, bringing hope, curiosity, and a bond that neither human nor dragon could have anticipated. Under the soft glow of the workshop lights, Leora and Vera sat together, a human and a dragon, beginning the first chapter of a new life. The hatchling had chosen her, and in that choice lay the promise of something greater, a life full of discovery, courage, and the extraordinary bond that would define both their futures. Vera had grown quickly. The tiny hatchling that had once fit in Leora's hands now barely did, its wings stretching longer, scales shimmering brighter, and eyes full of curiosity and intelligence. Leora watched with a mix of pride and amazement. Each day brought new discoveries both about the dragon and about herself. Raising Vera was no longer just about care, it was about learning, growing, and understanding a creature unlike any she had ever known. The mornings began with exercises. Leora would guide Vera through stretches, encouraging the dragon to test its wings. At first, Vera flapped clumsily, tumbling over crates or sliding across the workshop floor. Leora laughed, steadying it with gentle hands and cheering every small success. Gradually, the dragon learned balance, strength, and coordination. Each flutter and leap filled the workshop with energy, and Leora felt a thrill she had never known, seeing life so vibrant and full of determination. Vera's curiosity was endless. It explored every corner of the workshop, poking its claws at small tools, sniffing strange metals, and nudging levers with intelligence that surprised Leora daily. Sometimes it would knock over a pile of parts, and Leora would scold it gently, only for the dragon to chirp apologetically before helping put things back in order with surprising dexterity. Leora realized that Vera was learning not just from her, but from trial and error, solving problems with cleverness and creativity that rivaled her own. They spent hours together experimenting. Leora showed Vera how engines worked, how circuits connected, and how tools could be used in unexpected ways. Vera watched intently, occasionally touching a wire or pressing a button with its clawed paw. Each time something worked, the dragon chirped with excitement, wings fluttering. Leora laughed at the joy radiating from the creature. It was clear that Vera was not just learning, Vera was thinking, observing, and understanding. But growing together wasn't only about learning. It was about trust, care, and connection. Vera would nuzzle Leora when she was tired, curl around her shoulders for warmth, and chirp softly when she spoke. Leora found herself talking to Vera about more than mechanics. She shared stories of her childhood, her dreams, and even fears. The dragon listened in silence, but Leora could feel understanding in the warmth of its body and the steady rhythm of its breathing. They were companions, partners, and friends, each teaching the other about patience, courage, and care. As the dragon grew, it became bolder. It began testing its wings in the open spaces of the scrapyard, gliding short distances, landing with surprising grace. Leora would watch from below, ready to catch her guide, but increasingly finding she didn't need to. Vera had learned control, balance, and timing. The dragon had begun to trust its own abilities, just as it trusted Leora. She realized that in teaching Vera she had grown too. Her patience, observation, and problem-solving had sharpened beyond anything she expected. Vera's intelligence became evident in other ways. It began to anticipate Leora's actions, fetching tools she needed, nudging components into place, and even warning her of small dangers she hadn't noticed. Once, a crate nearly tipped over onto her foot, but Vera leapt and batted it back just in time. Leora gasped, then laughed in disbelief. "You're amazing," she whispered. The dragon chirped, as if agreeing, proud of its own quick thinking. They explored beyond the workshop together, cautiously venturing into nearby forests and abandoned stations. Leora taught Vera about the dangers of unfamiliar terrain, how to avoid hazards, and how to stay hidden when needed. Vera absorbed it quickly, using its growing strength, sharp senses and instinct to navigate safely. It even helped Leora, scouting ahead and signaling with soft chirps when something was amiss. Their cooperation became seamless, human ingenuity paired with dragon instinct. At night, they rested together in the warm glow of the workshop. Vera would curl against Leora's side, small wings folding protectively, and Leora would stroke the dragon's scales, marveling at the textures and patterns. She felt a quiet peace, knowing that their bond had deepened beyond anything she had imagined. The dragon was no longer just her responsibility, it was her partner, her friend, and her family. One evening, while tinkering with a small engine, Leora watched as Vera experimented on a broken drone. The dragon nudged parts with its claws, tilted its head, and pressed buttons with careful attention. Within minutes, the drone whirred to life. Leora stared, amazed. "You did that?" she asked softly. Vera chirped proudly, wings fluttering. Leora realized then that their partnership had reached a new level. They could solve problems together, combining human creativity and dragon intelligence in ways neither could achieve alone. As weeks turned into months, Vera's growth continued. Its wings became strong enough to carry brief flights, its scales tougher and its senses sharper. Leora's trust in the dragon deepened, and the dragon's trust in her became unshakable. Together they explored, learned, and overcame small challenges, preparing for whatever dangers might lie ahead in the galaxy. The bond between them was clear. Leora had found more than a dragon. She had found a companion who understood, learned, and shared in her life. And Vera had found a human who cared, guided, and nurtured it. Together they were stronger than either alone. As they sat one night on the edge of a cliff overlooking the scrapyard and distant stars, Leora whispered softly, "We'll face everything together. Whatever comes, we can do it." Vera chirped and nudged her hand, wings stretching slightly in agreement. They had grown together not just in size or skill but in trust, courage, and understanding. And in that quiet moment, the human and the dragon knew that their lives were forever intertwined, ready for the adventures and challenges that awaited them. The night was quiet when the first warning arrived. Leora was working on a broken hover drone in the workshop, while Vera curled nearby, wings folded, watching her carefully. Suddenly, the faint vibration of the floor under her feet made her pause. She glanced up at the soft glow from the doorway and her heart sank. Something was approaching and it was not friendly. Through the dark shadows of the scrapyard, she saw figures moving, slender, alien shapes with sharp weapons and scanners. They were searching for something and Leora knew immediately, they were after Vera. Her dragon had grown fast, and its intelligence and rare scales made it valuable to the wrong people. She felt a chill run down her spine. The sanctuary they had built was no longer safe. Vera sensed it too. The dragon's body tensed, wings flaring slightly, and a low, warning chirp filled the workshop. Leora stepped forward, placing a protective hand on its small head. "We'll face this together," she whispered, her voice steady even though her heart pounded. Vera chirped back, eyes bright and alert, ready to defend. The aliens advanced cautiously, scanning for movement. Leora quickly assessed the workshop and surrounding area. Broken parts, tools, and machinery were scattered everywhere. She realized she could use them to her advantage. Picking up a few reflective panels and loose wires, she created a small diversion near the doorway. Vera watched, eyes following her every movement, understanding instantly that this was part of the plan. As the aliens entered, the reflection of the panels flashed in their eyes, momentarily blinding their sensors. Vera chirped sharply and darted toward them, small claws striking a console and sending sparks into the air. The aliens stumbled back, confused. Leora seized the moment, leading Vera through a narrow side exit she had discovered months ago while exploring the scrapyard. Their path was tight, forcing the aliens to slow down. Outside, the scrapyard was dark, the debris providing cover. Vera flapped its wings, testing its strength, and took short, controlled flights over obstacles. Leora followed, careful but determined. She realized that the dragon's growth and intelligence gave them an advantage. They could outsmart and outmaneuver their pursuers if they worked together. The aliens adapted quickly, splitting into pairs and scanning methodically. One of them spotted a shadow moving and fired a pulse beam. Leora ducked instinctively, feeling the heat pass close by. Vera reacted instantly, leaping into the beam's path and using its body to deflect it with a flick of its wings. Sparks flew and the attackers hissed in frustration. Leora's breath caught, but she knew Vera was clever enough to handle itself, guided by her commands and presence. Using the chaos, Leora led Vera into a hidden alcove behind stacked scrap containers. They paused, catching their breath. The hatchling's scales glowed faintly in the dim light, reflecting their urgency. Leora stroked its head gently. "We can do this," she said. "We've grown together. We know each other. Let's show them what we can do." Vera chirped loudly, a sound full of determination and trust. They moved again, carefully navigating narrow paths and sharp debris. Leora had taught Vera to use its wings for short bursts of flight and to balance precisely on uneven surfaces. Each time the aliens tried to follow, they triggered small traps Leora had set, overturned crates, tangled wires, and reflective panels that confused their sensors. The combination of human ingenuity and dragon instinct created a perfect defense. At one point, an alien managed to corner them near a collapsed ship. Leora's heart raced. Vera chirped sharply, scanning the area, and then leapt onto a stack of crates, claws gripping tightly. Its wings spread wide, creating a sudden gust of wind that knocked the alien backward. Leora took advantage, activating a small motorized cart to slide between them, knocking another alien off balance. Together they moved with precision, a team perfectly synchronized through trust and practice. The pursuit continued until the aliens finally realized they were outmatched. Vera's clever use of the terrain, combined with Leora's quick thinking, had created confusion and frustration. The attackers retreated, muttering in their harsh language, leaving the scrapyard in silence once again. Leora sank to the ground, exhausted, while Vera landed beside her, chirping softly and nuzzling her hand. They had survived, but the danger had shown Leora something important. Vera was extraordinary, not just in size or strength but in intelligence and understanding. Humans could not only survive with dragons but could work together to overcome threats far larger and stronger. Their partnership was more than friendship. It was a combination of cleverness, instinct, and trust that could withstand almost anything. As they sat in the quiet scrapyard, Leora stroked Vera's scales, feeling the warmth of its body and the steady rhythm of its breathing. She realized that their lives were forever linked. They had grown together, faced danger together, and survived. The experience had tested them, strengthened them, and taught them the true power of cooperation. Night fell fully, and the stars reflected on the scattered metal of the scrapyard. Leora looked down at Vera, whose eyes shimmered softly in the dark. "We did it," she whispered. "We survived, and will survive anything else that comes." Vera chirped in response, its wings stretching as if agreeing. The threat had returned, but it had also revealed something vital. The bond between human and dragon was not just strong, it was extraordinary. They had proven that courage, intelligence, and trust could overcome even the most formidable enemies. Leora knew that this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast and dangers were everywhere, but together she and Vera could face anything. Under the twin moons of the space station, the workshop and scrapyard glowed faintly, reflecting hope, courage, and the beginning of a legend. Leora hugged Vera close, feeling a sense of pride and connection she had never known. The dragon had hatched, they had grown together, and now they had survived a real threat. Their lives were intertwined forever, ready to face a future full of challenges, discoveries, and the extraordinary bond between human and dragon. The sunlight streamed through the windows of Leora's workshop, casting long shadows over the scattered tools and the soft glow of Vera's scales. The dragon had grown strong and confident, wings broad enough to carry short flights across the scrapyard and claws precise enough to help with delicate machinery. Leora watched as it worked beside her, nudging small parts into place and chirping softly whenever something functioned correctly. She could hardly believe how far they had come since the day the egg had appeared among the wreckage. The events of the past weeks had changed more than just their skills, they had changed how the world saw them. Word of the dragon and its human caretaker had spread quietly among nearby settlements. Traders, mechanics, and even other species had heard whispers about the extraordinary bond between Leora and Vera. Some were curious, some cautious, and others openly amazed. Humans and aliens alike began to see what could be achieved when two very different beings worked together with trust, intelligence, and courage. Leora smiled as she watched Vera flap its wings, testing the latest repair she had made on a small hover drone. The dragon chirped proudly as the drone lifted smoothly into the air, responding to her instructions. It was a simple success, but it symbolized something greater: cooperation, learning, and innovation born from a partnership that no one had expected. Together they had faced dangers, solved problems, and grown stronger, showing that human ingenuity paired with alien abilities could accomplish extraordinary things. The peaceful morning was interrupted by a distant hum. Leora's eyes narrowed as she saw a small fleet of ships approaching the station. Unlike the hostile group that had threatened them before, these ships carried diplomats and explorers, representatives from nearby colonies who had come to learn about the human and dragon who had survived impossible odds. Leora felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. This was their chance to show the galaxy the value of cooperation, but it also meant exposure and responsibility. Vera chirped, sensing her emotions. The dragon moved closer, curling its tail around her arm in a protective gesture. Leora smiled, feeling the comfort of its presence. Together they stepped outside, and the visitors landed gracefully, carefully keeping a respectful distance. They were cautious, but their eyes were filled with wonder. Leora spoke gently, introducing herself and Vera, explaining how they had met, grown, and survived together. She demonstrated the dragon's intelligence, showing how it could assist with mechanical work, navigate obstacles, and respond to her commands. The visitors were amazed. They whispered among themselves, pointing at Vera's shimmering scales, its delicate yet precise movements, and the clear bond between human and dragon. Leora felt a warm pride swell in her chest. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about the potential for a new era. Humans and alien species could coexist, learn from each other, and achieve things that neither could do alone. The future was no longer about fear or conflict. It was about collaboration and understanding. Over the next few weeks, Leora and Vera worked with the visiting explorers, teaching them how to care for and communicate with dragons. They showed how human problem-solving combined with dragon instincts could overcome challenges and build new technologies. The visitors took notes, asked questions, and marveled at the efficiency and intelligence displayed by the unlikely duo. Leora realized that their story was spreading not just because of the dragon, but because it proved the untapped potential of humans and their ability to form bonds with beings far beyond their own species. Vera grew even stronger, its wings capable of soaring across the skies of the station and beyond. It learned to communicate more effectively, using a combination of chirps, body language, and subtle gestures that any attentive human could understand. Leora taught it carefully, but she learned from the dragon as well. Vera had instincts, intuition, and intelligence that surpassed most expectations, and observing its decisions, Leora saw ways to improve her own thinking and creativity. Together they were not just a team, they were a symbol of what could happen when species trusted each other. One evening, after a long day of teaching and repairs, Leora and Vera sat on the highest point of the scrapyard, watching the sun dip below distant mountains. The fleet had departed, taking their knowledge and stories with them, spreading tales of the human and dragon who had defied expectations. Leora stroked Vera's head, feeling the warmth and trust radiating from the dragon. "We've done more than survive," she whispered. "We've shown what's possible. This is a new era, one we get to shape together." Vera chirped softly, curling against her shoulder as if agreeing. In the following months, their partnership continued to inspire others. Humans began to see that courage, cleverness, and empathy could overcome fear of the unknown. Aliens realized that humans could be trusted allies, capable of forming bonds that were not just practical, but emotional and lasting. Leora and Vera became a legend of sorts, a living proof that intelligence, trust, and cooperation could change the course of a small world and perhaps even the galaxy. The sanctuary of their scrapyard had become more than a home. It was a place of learning, experimentation, and discovery. Visitors came from far and wide, not to conquer or exploit, but to observe, learn, and build connections. Leora taught them, guided them, and shared the lessons she had learned with Vera at her side. Every success, every problem solved, every act of teamwork reinforced the new understanding between species. As night fell and the stars shimmered above, Leora and Vera looked out over the station. The hatchling that had changed her life forever was now a strong, intelligent dragon, and together they had transformed their world. They had faced danger, uncertainty, and fear, but through courage, trust, and partnership, they had created a path forward. A new era had begun, not just for humans and dragons, but for all who dared to see beyond difference and embrace cooperation. Leora whispered to Vera, "This is just the beginning. Together we'll show the galaxy what humans and dragons can achieve." The dragon chirped softly, nuzzling her hand, wings stretching proudly in the moonlight. They had survived, grown, and changed the future. The era ahead was bright, full of possibility, and theirs to shape. For the first time, Leora felt completely certain that she and Vera had found their place, not just in the scrapyard, not just on the station, but in the vast, infinite galaxy that awaited them both.